Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We have just a very short list of announcements today, inshallah, so let's get right to it. Let's please make dua for those in our community who have passed away. Brother Jimmy Jahari, brother-in-law of Brother Bernie, passed away in Indonesia. Brother Abdul Jamil, father of our community member, Brother Abdul Hai Miakhil. And Brother Ahmed Ibrahim, who is the brother of our community member, Brother Munaf, passed away last night in St. Louis. May Allah grant these individuals Jannat al-Firdaus and forgive them of their sins. Ameen. Also, let's keep the following individuals in our dua for Shifa: our beloved son Zain Yusuf and Brother Ahmed Muhyiddin. May Allah grant these individuals a quick and speedy recovery and grant patience and ease to their families. Ameen. Also, Islamic Relief has declared a state of emergency in Syria. Please make sure to keep them in your dua. If you would like to donate to the people of Syria, you may do so by contacting Brother Nadim. And then finally, as a reminder, we are no longer collecting clothes here at our center. If you have clothes you would like to donate, we can direct you to the right place, but please do not drop off any more clothes. We repeat this announcement every week, and subhanAllah, we continue getting people dropping off clothes. So if you have clothes that you would like to donate but don't know where to go, we can help you in the office, but please do not drop them off here. And finally, our khatib is Dr. Khalid Bahijri.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. وأشهد أن سيدنا حبيبنا قائدنا وقدوتنا أسوتنا الحسنة صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه رسول الله فقد بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حتى أتاه اليقين صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه. أيها الإخوة والأخوات، يقول الله عز وجل في محكم التنزيل: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. ويقول الله عز وجل في سورة الحشر: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him for everything that He has given us. We thank Him for bringing us to the masjid. And we bear witness and testify, my dear brothers and sisters, and we renew this every single time and say that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, our beloved role model, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent him to guide us to the best way and the shortest distance that will take us to Jannah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us disciplined enough to stay on that track. Allahumma ameen. My dear brothers and sisters, in trying to think about an appropriate khutbah for what we're going through, there are so many topics to choose from. But subhanallah, it happens to be that we're starting a new year according to this calendar that we're in. And I thought maybe it's appropriate for us to reflect a little bit on self-accountability. And while many of us might do this, some people are different when it comes to this. Some people do it on a regular basis, others are random, others don't do it. Some choose the month of Ramadan to do this reflection upon oneself. And I thought maybe because schools have not started and we have some young folks amongst us, and many of us use the calendar that we use for references to many things, work and other matters, that maybe we could reflect on this topic. A very important topic, my dear brothers and sisters, in terms of self-reflection, self-accountability. This is a very core part of our deen. As you mentioned, I started the khutbah in Arabic by saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words in Surah Al-Hashr. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu attaqullah. All you who believe, be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. That every one of us need to hold ourselves accountable for the day that is yet to come. The day which is that al-akhirah. This whole concept that we're going to be evaluated is a core part of our deen. It's actually one of the pillars of our iman. When we say that we believe in the akhirah, not just as a process, but it's a time when we will be accounted for everything that we've done. Every single matter. In surah that many of us memorize, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. That even an atom's weight of a deed that a person does good will see it in the hereafter. And those that will do an atom worth of a bad deed will see it in the hereafter. This concept of self-accountability is a core part of our deen. Inshallah, before I go further with the khutbah, if I may just kindly request people to move forward, inshallah, so that we don't interrupt the khutbah later on in the middle. As much as possible, if you can come forward, this will create space at the back. My dear brothers and sisters, this concept again of being holding ourselves accountable. From the Quran, then we go to what the Prophet ﷺ has said. And there are numerous ayat, by the way. And there are numerous ahadith. But just in the interest of time, I just selected one of each. When the Prophet ﷺ says, in this hadith narrated by Anas ibn Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala and radiyallahu anhu, and the hadith authenticated by Imam Ahmad, where the Prophet ﷺ says, Al-Kayyis, the smart one, my dear brothers and sisters. Many of us, many times we define smart as being the one that is able to make, as much profit and being just smart and being savvy enough to navigate through things without being detected or captured. This is how people define things. And the Prophet ﷺ puts this in true perspective. Al-Kayyis, the smart one. Man dana nafsah. a person who holds himself accountable is the one that is smart. وَعَمِلَ لِمَا بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ, and starts to do things in this world for the sake of the akhirah. Because when you measure them, they're not even comparable. What we have in this dunya is a very short, limited time, each one of us, compared to eternity, which will, inshallah, our destiny, bimashi'atillah azza wa jal, we work for it, is bimashi'atillah jannah. So this is, my dear brothers and sisters, a very important thing. That's why Umar ibn al-Khattab, this great Sahabi, he puts this in perspective and he says, حَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. Make sure that you hold yourself accountable before a day will come where you will be held accountable. And then he says, وَزِنُوا أَعْمَالَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُوزَنَ عَلَيْكُمْ. And make sure that you will hold your deeds and try to weigh them. Which is it more favorable or unfavorable? Weigh it and see what you need to make adjustments. Not just for the sake of weighing, but to make adjustments so that in the day, in the akhirah, then the weight of the good deeds that you've done will outweigh the bad one, and then we enter Jannah. It's a process. This idea of self-accountability, when you think of, subhanallah, these Sahaba radwanullahi alayhim, Umar ibn Khattab, the way he reflected, this was in just so many ways that the Sahaba report on Umar ibn Khattab. Once Umar ibn al-Khattab, in a hadith narrated by Anas ibn Malik, it was said that he was going at the time of his khilafah, when he was a khalifa. And so he was next to a wall, and this Sahabi, Anas ibn Malik, hears Umar ibn al-Khattab kind of talking to himself. And he said, what is Umar ibn al-Khattab doing? Let me just follow him. So he follows Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Umar ibn al-Khattab goes into a small corner and he says, Ya bunayya al-Khattab, O son of al-Khattab, talking about himself. Ya bunayya al-Khattab, imma tattaqeen Allah, wa imma la yu'adhibannaka Allah. That if you do not have taqwa, O Umar ibn al-Khattab, Allah Azza wa Jal will punish you on the day of judgment. He's talking to himself. He's self-evaluating. So that's inshallah the core of the topic. And I'll tell you inshallah bimashi'atillah Azza wa Jal, yes, there is some spiritual component, because that's a very core part of our deen for this khutbah inshallah. But also in the second part of the khutbah, there are many contemporary scholars and authors who are non-Muslims, who have written so much in terms of steps and so on that could be done by any person to self-correct themselves and self-account themselves. So I will be referring to some of that. But subhanallah, you see that Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah has written quite so much on this, especially in his book Madarij al-Salikin. Madarij al-Salikin, which is the levels of those who seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah, this idea of just watching Allah before we do any other thing, so that everything is for the sake of Allah, was exemplified by this great scholar Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he said that many times when people will talk and the scholars will talk, he says that I know much of what to say, but I refrain from talking for the sake of, and he says, إِنَّهُ لَيَمْنَعُنِي مِنْ كَثِيرِ الْكَلَامِ مَخَافَةَ الْمُبَاهَاةِ. That people will say, oh, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz knows this, and he knows that, and so on. Because I'm afraid that people will say this, and they will start to praise me, which will affect me, then I keep quiet. Subhanallah. And I mention these, and there is so much on this, but I don't want to go into the ideal worlds of these great individuals, from whether it's the Sahaba or the Tabi'een or so, because they are very much ahead in reality compared to us. That's a fact. So we want to talk about realistic things that you and I can do. When any person who's there, and young ones, I want you to focus on the khutbah because part of it is for you. So when a 10 years old or an 8 years old, we ask them, make sure, احفظ الله يحفظك, that hold Allah in your vision so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be with you. It becomes meaningful. And so for this, my dear brothers and sisters, we need to start to specify, what is it that I want to do? How do I evaluate myself? We did this exercise last Friday in Redlands Masjid. And the way that, because it wasn't a khutbah, it was just a Friday night prayer. So at the very beginning, I asked the brothers and sisters, I gave them just a small sheet of paper and said, what is it that you want to do for this year? And subhanAllah, people started to list things. And I'll tell you, it's a very haphazard way of listing things. People were just writing things, scribbling things, without really kind of prioritizing what is more important to them. And so people wrote things. And at the very end, after we talked about some of these principles that I'll share with you, we revisited that. And alhamdulillah, a number of them corrected a number of these goals because it started to make proper sense for them. And so it's goals and objectives. And some of them, subhanAllah, they even sent me in texts and so on what their goals are. And they didn't have to, of course. But it was good to see the process happening. That's what I want to share with you. My dear brothers and sisters, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, this great scholar and the student of Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he says the following: when you come to evaluate yourself, understand this. If you consistently evaluate yourself in this dunya, your evaluation in the akhirah will be light. And if you do not evaluate yourself here, because you will have remnants of all sorts of things, uncorrected things, if you will, unadjusted things, then in the akhirah it will be heavy accountability. That is why he says it is very important for a person to go through this evaluation. Couple of things to keep in mind. This process, my dear brothers and sisters, is a self-choice. There is no sheikh that will come and tell me you have to do this and then it automatically will translate into work. There is no other person. My mom, people don't like to be held accountable. Some of us even don't like this from our parents or from our brothers or sisters or friends or so. Just leave me alone type of thing. So the best thing Ibn al-Qayyim says is when it's self-initiated, when it's self-choice. A person realizes the importance of this. That's why we talked about this. It's a core part of our deen, that there is hisab on the day of judgment. So you start to evaluate yourself here. And so by doing this, my dear brothers and sisters, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah will keep us continuously in an improvement process. That's why the purpose of this idea of identifying goals and following up with them, the purpose of it is to improve. Simply to improve. You are not compared to Umar or Ahmed or Safiya or Khadija. That's not the idea. The idea is to compare it to yourself. You see where you're at, and people are different. Some of us in reality might not even perform salah. An obligation that is so clear, so vivid. Some people don't make salah. Others in Ramadan, they don't fast. Others, mashallah, they do all of this, and we're talking about qiyam for them. Others, mashallah, are in a very high, we are so different when it comes to this. That's why you don't want to compare yourself to others. That's what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says. When it's al-muhasabah, هي محاسبة النفس, that you evaluate yourself compared to who you are today and how to move forward down the line. And we'll talk about some of the principles that are very important to this. Success is not going to happen without this self-evaluation. You think you're improving, but in reality you don't know, you don't have a baseline. Without a baseline, you cannot say that I've moved forward or I'm going backwards. You think you might have been moving forward, but you could have actually made multiple steps if this was put in the right perspective. Some key principles to this, my dear brothers and sisters, and wallahi, this is a reminder. And I am the first in need of these type of reminders. Very first principle to keep in mind. If the purpose of why you're doing this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be pleased with us, the pleasure of Allah, ridha Allah, as Ibn al-Qayyim says, that the very foremost principle for this is if it is seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a lot of these things, as difficult as they seem, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will find a way for them. It's a very important principle that you're doing this so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with me in this life and in the hereafter. And it's a very difficult challenge, because for those of us that might have gone through this process, it's not always smooth. It's not smooth. You start to work on it, and before you know it, the thing that you've identified to work on just doesn't work out very well, and you go through bumps. It happens. But subhanAllah, I was reading on one of the contemporary scholars on this, and put it in a very nice frame, which has a lot of principles for it in the Quran and in the Sunnah. But he says, and I love the way he wrote this, he says, if you do not fail enough times, subhanAllah, very nice, profound statement. If you do not fail enough times, you will not know the gratification of success. Subhanallah, beautiful words. That is manifested across the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. If from day one they had the Islamic State, if you will, if from day one they had Medina, they would not know, they would not appreciate the success of Medina. They went through 13 years of very difficult times in Mecca. And initially a little bit of a challenging time in Medina. And even after the success of Badr, which was an ideal battle they went through, after that, it happens to be that they went through bumps. The bump of Uhud, the bump of Hunayn. And so many of these challenges that they went through. That is part of it. That you go through ups and downs. It's part of this process, my dear brothers and sisters. Subhanallah. I'll tell you this. In working with this, with some of these concepts for the past few years, subhanallah, and all of us, we go through this. Those goals for which there is no action means no progress. You can sit and identify any goals that you want. If you do not put action items towards that, it's not going to progress. You think you're accomplishing something and you're saying, I'm working on this, but there is no action that you've identified to work on it. It does not work very well. Inshallah, this will become more and more specific as we move on. So that's a very important principle. The principle is that there has to be a amal along with this concept of goal that has been identified. A very important principle, and now this is where we get into some of the specifics, my dear brothers and sisters. I am encountering so many things personally that I want to change in my life. So many things. From work to some of my basics of deen that I want to cover, from things that I want to avoid. All of these things are, and I don't know how to prioritize. Well, here is a very, very profound thing that our scholars of Tazkiyah have said. التخلية قبل التحلية. Remember this. One of the brothers last Friday said, of all the things you mentioned, this is the thing I remember the most. It's so easy to remember. التخلية قبل التحلية. If you want to change something, you cannot identify to change, to say, okay, I want to do qiyam. I want to do 5 daily prayers. Or for students who are challenged with B's and C's, I want to go into an A. You cannot identify that and keep doing the same exact thing. You have to remove the negative environment that you're in, change it into a positive environment. That takhliya, that you remove yourself from that negative environment and then work on the positive environment. It's in that order. Takhliya and then tahliya. And a very good example that our scholars talk about is the following. If you have a cup of water where in it is a little bit of poison, you can add whatever you want in it thinking that you're going to clean it. It's not going to clean. You have to pour it out, takhliya, pour it out, pour that poison out, clean it up, and then start to build on. Even small amounts will make a difference at that time. But with the poison in it, it's not going to matter much. That's a very important concept. So for many of us, some of the youth that are challenged with looking at haram type of stuff, and so many of us are challenged with so many different things. Takhliya and then tahliya. Remove yourself from that environment. Bad influences, bad friends that some of the youth might have at school, when they're challenged with this, and they say, okay, next year is going to be different. How is it going to be different if you're still sticking to the same friends? It's not going to happen. It's not magic type of thing. It has to go through a process. And our scholars, Ibn al-Qayyim and others have talked about this long time ago. Takhliya qabl al-tahliya. Very important principle. That is the basic concept, my dear brothers and sisters, of the shahada that we say. What do we say? La ilaha illallah. We don't say Allah huwa the only God. We don't say that. We say La ilaha. There cannot be 360 gods being worshipped and then you say I also worship God. You have to remove La ilaha and then illallah and then establish Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that process is something that is profound in our deen. So Alif Lam Mim in Surah Al-Baqarah, what do we say? Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Remove all the doubts. You cannot say this is the Quran, I'm going to follow it and so on, while you have doubts. If you have doubts, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask people, find out, believe in it, then you can follow. You cannot have the doubts, you cannot have the negative, and then try to build on. It doesn't work like that. Remember this, it's a process of change. And this has been outlined for us. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm in a process now that I want to change. I want to identify a few things. So I'll share with you a few of these. First of all is to prioritize. One of the best that have written on this Ibn al-Qayyim. He was really good at this type of stuff. And he says the following. Subhanallah, look how initially, if I was giving you a paper and I was to say, what do you want to change? You might list 15, 20 things you want to change in your life. But they're not prioritized. You don't know what to do. And I'll tell you, 15 things you cannot change in a year. It's not going to happen. It has to be few, very specific, measurable items. And so Ibn al-Qayyim says the following. All the things you want to change are categorized to three. Three. Things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered you to do and you fall short. The second category is things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said they are haram. You have to stop them. You have to avoid them. But you keep on doing them. Those are things you want to change. And then he says the third things are the things that are permissibles out there, where you want to simply improve communication skills, work skills, trainings. There are many, many things that we want to improve in. So if I ask you a list, and one of the youth last weekend was saying, well, I want to be a better soccer player. That's great, mashallah, that's good. I wish you can be a better soccer player. But you're telling me, and I happen to know that kid, and we had a conversation afterwards. But if you're telling me that your mom is complaining from you, and your mom is not happy because every time she asks you for something, you're saying, come on, mom, not me. If you're doing some of that, and your topmost priority now is to be a soccer player, there is a problem. So the priorities are what we talked about. See as to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered you. That's why it's not one recipe that will work for all. Every one of us knows ourselves. Some of us, my dear brothers and sisters, the way to translate this into something practical, the things that are obligated on you are the basic things which are 5 pillars of Islam. These are the pillars upon which Islam is built. بُنِيَ الْإِسْلَامُ عَلَى خَمْسٍ. These 5 things, if they're not there, then you start to talk about a lot of fancy goals. I want to do qiyam, I want to do dhikr 2 times, 3 times a day. These are good things, but your priorities are way off. The most basic things are the 5 pillars of Islam. When the Prophet ﷺ says that a person who does not make salah is not one of us, and a person is not performing salah and yet talking about, mashallah, all sorts of, I want to be, I want to do all these trainings and those type of things for the year. Priorities are off. And maybe work will obligate you to do something. We're talking about self-improvement, things you fall short in. That's why this is very, very critical that a person sits and quick scan the 5 pillars. Where am I at on those? And they have to be done properly. So when we talk about salah, it's not just praying 5 times, it's 5 times a day at their specific times. So if a person does not wake up for Fajr, it's a goal, and the person says, this is my goal for the year. Identify maybe two or three things, or maybe 1 or 2 things with it, that's it. You wake up, you do your dua after salah, instead of jumping after salah and moving on, you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, say, Ya Allah, help me with this. And I keep on committing to this, but I fall short. Yesterday I didn't wake up. And the day before I did, Ya Allah, help me. This process, my dear brothers and sisters, is an amazing process that helps a lot when it comes to improvement. These 5 pillars. And then you ask yourself, so for each one of these, you need to see takhliyah and then tahliyah. Salah, what is it that does not make me wake up? It's because maybe I stay up and the night quite a bit late, and I don't go to sleep early. Then that has to be adjusted. Don't tell me I'll wake up still while you're doing still the same thing. Remember, the things you want to change, takhliyah and then tahliyah. So that's one. The other one is things you want to stop. Category of things that you have to stop. The harams are very clear and the halals are very clear, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ tells us. It's very clear. So the things that are haram are very evident in our deen. A person who works with riba, you have to say, Ya Allah, help me. And I know it's difficult. And there might be a complete khutbah dedicated to this. It's not easy, especially if you've been using it all the time. But it's a very clear haram in our deen. And so something like that has to be worked on. You say, Ya Allah, help me with this. I'll gradually, step by step, start to remove this from part of my life. Things like that have to be worked on. For those of us, young ones and so on, maybe that are indulged into this haram thing that becomes so accessible, computers and phones and so on. You'll have to start to work and say, Ya Allah, that is something haram. Ya Allah, help me with this, and so on. So these are key things, my dear brothers and sisters. So when you look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is narrated by Imam al-Bukhari, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu says the following. It's a long hadith, but the Prophet ﷺ says the following, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, hadith Qudsi, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا افْتَرَضْتُ عَلَيْهِ. That you cannot come close to me with optional, extra credit type of thing while you've forgotten your basic obligations. The best way to come close to me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, is through the obligations that I have put on you. And the obligations are things you are required to, and also things that you're supposed to stop, and you still keep on doing them. These are very, very important parameters. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us recognize and understand this. In the second part of the khutbah, I will share with you few practical steps. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the first step, my dear brothers and sisters, in terms of very specific steps so that you take something practical from this khutbah. First thing is scan. You do a quick scan. Where is it that I'm short? Is it the obligations or is it the harams that I'm supposed to be stopping? If many of these are fulfilled, then you start to work on the additional ones, the sunan, the witr, the qiyam, the dhikr, and there are many, many others. But also our life to make me a better person as a Muslim. Being a good student, aiming for an A as a student, being the top doctor, being the best businessman, the most honest. For those that are going into backbiting and talking and saying, I'm going to not backbite. Period. This year is my goal. And you might fail. And wallah, I'll tell you, without going into specifics, there was a goal for myself 3 years ago, Allah. 3 years ago. I started to work on that. And every Ramadan would be, my cycle is a Ramadan cycle. So every Ramadan would be, and I have not much accomplished. And wallahi, it took over 3 years for me to have significant progress in that. It is a process. And we work on and evaluate. And it goes through this process, my dear brothers and sisters. After you've scanned, you identify your goal. Set a goal. Put 1 or 2 goals. This is what you dream of. This is what your dua is all about. This is when you wake up, you think about this. When you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Ya Allah, give me the one thing, this is the first thing that comes to your mind. It's the topmost priority. If there is a second thing that comes as great as the second thing is. If the first one is not accomplished, then the second one is a disruption. It disrupts my first one. This is how I want to think about the goals that I have set. The second one is be consistent. Practical from people who are contemporary, people who have written on this. Be consistent. Don't come in the middle of the year and change it. You might want to adjust it. Maybe if you've said, okay, I want to do dhikr once a day, every day. And that was not realistic for you. Do it once a week. Adjust it, but don't change it. It remains the same, but maybe adjust the quantity of it. That's possible. But be consistent. Don't say, I have failed. Any progress is a progress in itself. It took me, wallahi, 3 years, as I mentioned to you, on a specific item that I was working on. And so many of us, we're challenged by this, and we always want to improve, even if it is a gradual process. Be as organized as possible. Put it into practical actions. A person who says, one of the brothers sent me, since last Friday, a text of 16 goals that he wanted to accomplish. And I'm just wondering, how would you do 16 of these goals within a year when you have not worked on them before? Too idealistic. It doesn't work for you to translate this into organized daily type of thing or a weekly type of thing is a big challenge. So be organized and put something practical that would translate this. Subhanallah, one of the great things I've learned in this, and this is again from a contemporary person that has written on this, police yourself. Police yourself. What does that mean? Subhanallah, it's the 0 to 100 rule. And I don't know if some of you might know this. The 100-0 rule or the 0-100. 100 is referring to 100% responsibility. I am responsible for these goals. So when I fail, I'm not going to say because Brother Hussam didn't help me. When I fail, I'm not going to say because Mom did not help me. Because school work was too much. You needed to adjust. It is your responsibility, not anybody else. 100% you own that responsibility. You set a goal, it is your responsibility, nobody else. The 0 part is 0 excuses. It's easy for us to let go of our goals because it's very easy to identify excuses that would help us change. So if I put my goal and say these are 2 or 3 things that I've identified, And you see, if you don't go through this process, a whole week has passed by already from January. And because we didn't put any of these goals. And before you know it will be 6 months, and time flies, as you know. And so put a specific goal and say no excuses. It is my responsibility, 100% responsibility, 0 excuses I'll accept from myself, and I'm moving too fast because of the time. Another very great tip when it comes to this, my dear brothers and sisters, learn to say no. Subhanallah. Anything that will disrupt this goal from being happening is a distraction. Learn to say no. You cannot just in good faith or in goodwill or so just accept everything which would disrupt your goal. Your goal is the most important thing. Subhanallah. That's very profound. One of the brothers, we were talking about this, and so his, subhanallah, people are different goals they set. Subhanallah, he does his salah regularly in our masjid, Redlands Masjid. But subhanallah, a habit that he had is the moment we say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, he just gets up and walks. And so, of course, we know the importance of the dua and the sunnah and the tasbih and all of this. So he said, I'm going to put this my goal. And so the way he said is, I will discipline myself extra beyond even what you know the hadith and so say. I'm going to not even move the position. So once I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, I'm not going to even change my posture. I'm going to stay the way I am. I'm going to finish the tasbih and then move every single time. So inshallah, Allah helps him to accomplish. But that's realistic. That's realistic. That is what we're referring to. So if somebody else comes and talks to him, oh, brother Khalid, how are you? Or brother Hussam or so, and wants to disrupt him, then that person would say, okay, I'm going to say salam, but then still disciplined. I'm going to sit and say no to any other distractions because that environment needs to be conducive for me to finish. I cannot start to move and then do tasbih while walking. It's not going to work out. Before you know it, you're going to lose the importance of it and then just let go. That is a very important thing. And then, my dear brothers and sisters, ask for help. Yes, we said it's 100% responsibility, yes. But ask for help. There are others that could help you on that. So when you feel you are not being able to, ask others to help you. Not blaming them. No, but ask for help. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he used to say the following. That when it was tough for us to accomplish what we needed to accomplish. This is Ibn al-Qayyim. His teacher was Ibn Taymiyyah. He says the following. وَكُنَّا إِذَا اشْتَدَّ بِنَا الْخَوْفِ وَسَاءَتْ بِنَا الظُّنُونَ وَضَاقَتْ بِنَا الْأَرْضُ أَتَيْنَاهُ. When things were difficult and we had all sorts of assumptions because we didn't know what to do. This is Ibn al-Qayyim saying. He says, أَتَيْنَاهُ. We used to go to Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. فَمَا هُوَ إِلَّا أَن نَرَاهُ. That when we see him, Ibn Taymiyyah, وَنَسْمَعَ كَلَامَهُ, and we listen to what he says, فَيَذْهَبُ ذَلِكَ كُلُّهُ عَنَّا. All sorts of assumptions and challenges and so on start to vanish because he's a reference. He helps us. So translating this, look for a mentor. And there are many in our community, from people in the masjid or people who are experts in the field. If you've identified something related to it, there are people experts, managers and others that would help. But identify somebody who is in the field, an expert in the field that would help you go back on track. I would conclude with the following. Ibn Ata'illah al-Sakandari, one of the great scholars, said the following. من علامات النجح في النهايات. One of his wisdoms, he had many wisdoms. He says, من علامات النجح في النهايات. That if you want to get an indicator of success at the end from now, so while you're setting your goals, if you want to know if you're going to be successful or not, he says the following. الرجوع إلى الله في البدايات. Subhanallah. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't just do this, it's just a self, me, I can do this type of thing. Allah did say, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. This jihad ayah did not come in Medina. This jihad ayah that I just referred to came in Mecca. It's about self-struggle. It is a challenge. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا. With those that struggle with themselves, they fail sometimes they become successful. They go through this process, Allah will make them prevail. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. We will guide them. So Ibn Ata'illah Secondary, when he said that indicators of good success at the end of 2017 or end of 2018, whatever goal, inshallah, that you start to measure it, that success, the good indicator for it, is how you connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the process. When you started, you seek Allah. إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. We don't just go and ask our friends and so, and then lastly we say, let me also make dua. No. A good indicator is to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the get-go. You have that goal, you put it in your forefront and say, Ya Allah, it's through you that I will have success. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us recognize this and make us implement this and make us better Muslims. Better Muslims that will serve ourselves and serve our parents and serve our family and community and serve people that are around us from Muslims and non-Muslims. اللهم اهدنا واهدي بنا واجعلنا سببا لمن اهتدى. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم عاملنا بما أنت أهله. أنت أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة. وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آل محمد وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Stow, straighten your line. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن. إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها يومئذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.